First of all, thank you very much for attending this webinar on the impact of shared bikes and kick scooters in Belgium. My name is Bram Seus, and on the screen you can see my colleague Johannes Rodenbach. If you go to the next screen, Johannes, next slide. So some general rules for this webinar. Your microphones are mute automatically. If you have any questions during or after the presentation, feel free to ask them via the chat. And just to get to know each other a little bit, we are interested in where you come from. So if you could write in the chat your country and city where you come from. We're very excited to see that. Bremen, Germany. More people from Germany. Sweden, Brussels, Denmark. Oslo, Bergen. Wow, Melbourne, Australia. Look at that. It must be somewhere very late or in the night, I think, there at the moment. Okay, interesting. So we have a nice group of people here today in the webinar, international group. So my name is Bram Seus. I work as project and policy coordinator at Way2Go, and I will be your moderator for today. And as I said before, my colleague Johannes, he will do the presentation of the report we did or we published in September. So he will be the main person talking today. If you go to the next slide, about us, maybe you have heard from Way2Go, maybe not, but we are a Belgian NGO based in the city of Ghent. And our main focus is to work on two main pillars. The first pillar is to work on policy. We create reports like this one on shared bicycles and e-scooters, but we also do annual reports on the state of play of shared mobility in Belgium. Apart from that, we have also some people in our organization that work on the community. So we try to engage people, inform people about the benefits of shared mobility, and do communication campaigns, test campaigns, etc. with them. We are also one of the inventors of, if you go to the next slide, Johannes, of the Shared Mobility Rocks conference, who took place last month. And I want to use this time for a little bit of advertising for the next session. And if Johannes can get out of the screen a little bit, it's the 5th of the 5th of May next year. Yes, 5th of May next year, we will have Shared Mobility Rocks in cooperation with Wiener Linien in Vienna, Austria. So yeah, save the date, write it down in your agenda. Very interesting and inspiring symposium on shared mobility in a non-conventional way. Those who have been there know it. Those who haven't been there, they have missed something. It's a very interesting and unconventional conference on shared mobility, co-hosted by us together with Wiener Linien next year and Impact. Okay, I think I have said enough. Johannes, I would like to give the floor to you.
Thank you, Bram. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Johannes, colleague of Bram, and I want to guide you through the report we made on the impact of shared bikes, shared kick scooters in Belgium. But first, let's have a look on what we are talking about. So who are the operators active in Belgium in the field of bike sharing and kick scooters? So in our annual reports, we make a distinction between different forms of bike sharing. In the report we will publish or discuss today, we only focus on one form, which is the shared bike in general, but you can make some distinctions based on the operational form. You see here which of the operators are active in Belgium. Also, we have 7 operators that are active with shared kick scooters within a back-to-many system in different cities and regions in Belgium. If you have a look on the state of play of the end of 2024, so the end of last year, so the latest numbers we published beginning of this year, you see that in Belgium overall there are more than 20,000 shared bikes and almost 20,000 shared kick scooters in the whole country. If you look at the number of trips combined, so both bikes and kick scooters, there are more than 20 million trips. Also, if you look at the users, there's some overlap, so it's not possible to count them together, but you see huge numbers of people that are using kick scooters and shared bikes in Belgium. So it's not a small scale anymore. We have numbers per region, but it's not the focus of this report, but you can find it on our website. And in the coming months, we will make a new state of play. So keep in touch. And normally in the month of February 2026, we will launch a new report on state of play of car sharing, bike sharing, and kick scooter sharing in Belgium. We want to say thank you because this report we launched today, or we discussed today, was not possible without the help of 8 operators, all active in Belgium. You see the logos on the left side. So together with them, we launched a general questionnaire. We'll go into detail a bit later, but it's really a unique opportunity for us and also for the operators to do it together. It was the first time, especially in Belgium, I think also in a couple of other countries it had never done before, that all operators that are active join forces and work on a joint methodology and a joint questionnaire. So thank you to them. What we did, so we did a survey, a study in close collaboration with the University of Antwerp, and I also want to thank Elnert Koenegrachts and Joris Beckers from the university for their help with the analysis and support. So it was I think a nice example of cooperation also within the European Interreg Shared Hub project. So it's also part of this project which has ended already, but we'd like to take the opportunity to still communicate about the results. So what we did via the Cycling Industry Europe and Shared Mobility Group and also Micro Mobility for Europe, we contacted them and said, okay, we have the idea to do a joint questionnaire. Can we join forces? And that happened at the end of last year. We talked about a joint survey, and then we launched the online survey in spring of this year. This resulted in, I think, a quite nice sample, more than 4,000 respondents, of which 95% of them are inhabitants of the Flanders region. So for people that are not from Belgium, Flanders is the northern part of Belgium, the Dutch-speaking part, with biggest city Antwerp and Ghent, Leuven, Mechelen support. So we have a large majority of people that live in Flanders. Although we had the idea, we launched together with the operators also to people that use the bikes and the kick scooters in Brussels and in Wallonia, but still we have an overrepresentation of Flanders. That's why you will see also some comparison with general numbers for Flanders in the next slides, because this majority comes from this region. If we have a look at who are the respondents and what type of shared mobility do they use, so we have also majority of people that uses shared bikes. So 92% of the respondents use at least once the last year a shared bike. 21% of the people also use the kick scooter. 4% are people that used a shared cargo bike. So we also had one operator of shared cargo bikes joining the questionnaire or the survey, but the response rate was quite low there. So we choose not to focus on shared cargo bikes because of the low response rate, and it was hard to make representative statements about this group. But we'd like to do that in the future because it's a very interesting form of shared mobility. Last thing, we didn't focus on car sharing in this report, but we asked people that use shared bikes and shared kick scooters, do you also use sometimes often a shared car? And we see 1 in 4 respondents stated, okay, I used at least once a shared car the last 12 months. So that's already interesting to see the overlap between the different forms of shared mobility. It's not split it up in silos. We see that people use different forms next to each other, and that's, I think, one of the already interesting things that we can take away from this report. Okay, let's start. Are you ready for this? We'll start with the profile. So who are the respondents? What is the socio-demographics about them? Let's start with age. So we make a distinction or a difference between people that use shared bikes on the left-hand side and people that use the kick scooters on the right. We see on average that people that use kick scooters are younger, so on average 33 years old, compared to people that are using the bikes. Also, we see, if we look at the gender distribution, that among the kick scooter users, there are more male people. So two in three is male. And if we look at bike sharing, there is quite an even distribution between male and female. Let's have a closer look at the age distribution, because it's interesting to see, or it's closer look on the average numbers I stated. But if you look at the gray bars, for example, the gray bars are the people, the respondents that use shared kick scooters. You see that almost 70% of the people that responded are younger than 34 years old. So that's a very big group. And if you look at the people that are using shared bikes, it's more even distributed among the different age groups. So what we have, we also looked at the migration background. That's interesting to see, because we also have some numbers about people that use shared cars, and there we see quite a low percentage of people that have a migrant background, but here among kick scooters and bike sharing, it's already quite a nice group, 20% and even 29% among kick scooters. So that's a difference that is interesting to keep in mind. Also, if you look at the number of people that have a driving license, I think this is also linked to the age distribution. So people that use kick scooters are on average younger and have less of them have a driving license yet or not yet. We didn't ask if they are planning to have a driving license, but the only thing we can see that the numbers are lower. How often do people or respondents use micromobility? So do we see that people use it a lot or not? I can say already it is a lot. So what we did, we take a look at the group of active users, and what do we see as active users? That are people that used a shared vehicle at least once in the last 12 months before the questionnaire, before the survey. And among this group of active users, you see that more than 60% of the active bike share users used a shared bike at least once a week. So that's very often. And we see a similar thing happening among the kick scooter users. So 50% still, so half of the people that used kick scooter the last 12 months did that at least once a week. So we see among our respondents, these are the very heavy users of shared mobility, and that might be a little bit of overrepresentation of this group, but it's interesting to keep in mind that this is a group that is very actively using and fond of the system of shared mobility. We also asked about their motivations. So why do they use kick scooters and shared bikes, and for what reasons, what kind of trips? So let's start with the journey type. I think this is not very surprising. We see that the majority of people in both categories stated the journey type they use the most is, or the type of journey they use kick scooters and bikes the most for, is the leisure activities, followed by commuting, visiting friends, and for hobbies. We see some differences in the percentages between bikes and kick scooters, but the order of type of journeys is quite the same. We also asked about the reason for using. I'm a bit struggling with my view, so I'm trying to fix it. Okay, this is better. So we asked about, okay, what you often use a shared bike or a shared kick scooter, but what is the reason why you choose this mode of transport and not another mode? Let's start with bike sharing. So what we did in this questionnaire, we give the respondents a list of possible reasons. I think it were more than 10 reasons, and they could tick all the reasons that are valid for their travel behavior. And so we see, if we just ask, okay, what is valid for you, then we see that the reason that is picked most is for bike sharing is preventing theft or vandalism of their own bicycle. So that's the reason that comes out most, followed by spontaneous use. What do we understand about that? I think you must see, for example, someone is getting out of the office or out of the home, wants to go to the shop, the local shop, but doesn't know if he or she want to use the own bike or public transport, or maybe want to walk. And okay, he or she comes out and see, okay, there's a shared bike over there. Yeah, why not? I can use a shared bike. So it's not planned on beforehand, but it's spontaneous use. And you see that a lot of people take that reason as one of the reasons they use shared bikes. We see also some reasons linked to the to public transport, and more concrete to public transport that is lacking. So lacking because of poor connection, because of too crowded, or people that want to use a bus or tram or metro to a location where there's no bus stop, or in off-peak hours during the night or in the weekend where buses or trams are not running, and then people choose also for a shared bike. What we also did, so if, for example, respondents choose 3 reasons, then we gave in a follow-up question, we gave these 3 reasons, and we asked them, okay, you ticked these reasons, but how important are these reasons really for you to choose for a shared bike? And then it's interesting to see that the order of the reasons is changing. So if you look at the right column, then you see what comes out as most important. It's not the spontaneous use that is dropping down to the bottom of the list, but it's more the reasons that are linked to public transport. For instance, people use a shared bike because they want to have a quick and a safe solution to get home at the moments that public transport is not running. So it's really an addition to public transport. Also, the vandalism stays quite important. And if you look at the reasons for usage of e-kick scooters or shared kick scooters, it's more or less the same. So you see also the spontaneous use is chosen a lot. But then if we ask for what is really important, then also the reasons linked to public transport stand out. Time saving is also an important one. So there's already some hints to a link between the use of shared micromobility and public transport. We will come back to that later. Let's have a look at model split. So we asked the respondents, okay, if you look at your travel behavior right now at the moment of the filling in the questionnaire, and you look back the last 12 months, how often did you use different forms of mobility? We asked about their own bicycle, electric or not. And what you see here, the percentages you see in this graph is the share of people that used a form of mobility at least once a week. So that the frequent users of train and bus and metro and car and so forth. The blue and the gray bars are people that used shared bikes, shared kick scooters. The green bar are results from a general study in the Flanders region, an overall mobility study, which is the benchmark of how the Flemish people are traveling around. And so it's interesting to make the comparison, because we can compare the users of micromobility with the average Flemish citizen, for instance. Let's have a look at the usage of public transport. So if we take out bus, tram, metro, you see the average Flemish person, or among the general public in Flanders, we see that 11% is using bus, tram, metro every week. But if we look at the respondents of our questionnaire, we see that the numbers are much higher. So at least 3 or 4 times higher among kick scooters and bikes. So we can state that people that use shared bikes and shared kick scooters are heavy users of public transport, more than the average. Same is true for the usage of train. So 3 times more people that use the train every week than the general public. For car, it's a bit difficult to compare because of a different methodology. What we did in our study is we asked about the overall car usage, both as a driver or as a passenger. But in the Flemish study, it was they separated driver and passenger. But if you look at our numbers, so we see that 58% of the shared bike users and shared scooter users use a car every week. If we look at the overall numbers, it's 60% uses a car every week as a driver, and adding to that, there are also 50%, so half of the people that use a car every week as a passenger. It's not possible to add them because you have an overlap between the both, but it's fair to say, or it's safe to say, that the people that use shared micromobility are using the car less than the general people, but it's hard to predict how much less. But so that's why there's not a bar in green, but we can state that the users of shared bicycles and scooters travel more sustainably than the average Flemish person. We also had a look at the combination of both. So the combination of public transport and shared micromobility. I think this is a very interesting slide. So what we did, we took out all the people that use public transport at least once a week. So it's not the whole population or not the whole sample, but only the people that are very active users of public transport. And then we asked, okay, how often do you combine a trip with the bus, tram, or metro with a trip with a shared bike or a shared kick scooter? And we see, especially among the shared bike users, half of them state, okay, when I use public transport, I also use in a first or last mile solution a shared bike. So I think this is quite surprising. I didn't thought it was that big of a number. So people really see the both solutions as complementary, I think, to not only as a replacement in off-peak hours or at moments or at locations where public transport is not running, but also as an addition for first and last mile. Same is true for kick scooters, although the number is a bit lower. So almost 1 in 5 respondents that use kick scooters state they do it almost every time in combination with public transport, vice versa. So it's a golden combination, okay. At least for this indicator, you see that there is a lot of combined usage. But then let's have a look at the modal shift, which is also interesting. So we asked the respondents, in which way did you change your travel behavior since you're using shared micromobility? Do you use cars more often or less, and so on for every mode? And so let's dive into this. First, the good news. We really tend to see a modal shift away from car usage. So if we ask the people, okay, in what way did you lower your car use? Almost 40% of the people stated, okay, since I use shared bikes or kick scooters, I'm using a car less, both as a driver or a passenger. So that's really the impact you want to see, a positive modal shift away from car usage or car trips. But we also see a shift away from usage of public transport, bus, tram, metro, and trips on foot. That's maybe not the shift you want to see, but I think there are some reasons behind this, and I want to have a closer look on that in a couple of next slides. We also asked in a more hypothetical way, okay, you imagine your last trips with a shared bike or a shared scooter, and imagine if these vehicles were not available, hypothetically. How would you replace these kind of trips? With which vehicle or which mode of transport would you have been replacing this trip? And then we see a bit of the same in the last slide. So we see that among people that use shared bikes, 17% of people said, okay, I would have used the car at least once for these trips that I'm doing with a shared bike. So it's the same as in the last slide. So we see that there is really a group of people that is shifting away from car trips to shared bikes and shared kick scooters. But we see also the same image for public transport and trips by foot, that people people state, okay, if I have not the availability to use a shared bike or a shared kick scooter, I would go back, or I would use public transport or a trip by foot instead. how do we see the linkage between micromobility and public transport? Because I already said a lot about both, and there's good news, there may be more nuanced news, but how do we see it, or what is coming forth from the report? From what we see is that people tend to see micromobility as often more flexible, faster, and less crowded than public transport, and that is one of the reasons they also use it. And it's also a good solution at times or in places where public transport is not available or it's overloaded. So for these people, micromobility can really be a solution. But what we see also is that public transport, for a lot of the respondents, they still use it very often. So we see from the comparison with the average Flemish people that the usage of bus, tram, and metro and train is 3 to 4 times higher among the respondents we see here than among the average citizens from the Flanders region. So although there is a shift away from public transport, the usage is still very high. So I think this is an important nuance about these model shifts. People still use public transport a lot and see it as a complementary offer to micromobility. And in the absence of micromobility, people often revert to public transport. So I hope this helps you as a policymaker or as a user of micromobility to see how things are evolving. Okay. One of the last things we also had a look on is the vehicle ownership of people. So do people own cars, season tickets for public transport and so on? And in which way did the ownership change during time after people joined or used micromobility? But first, the current ownership. So at the moment of the survey, a lot of bars, but I will pick out some. Again, the green we can compare with the overall Flemish citizens. These are the green bars. So if you have a look at, for instance, the first indicator, so the share of people that doesn't have a car, and we see among the Flemish people, almost 1 in 5 households doesn't have a car. Among the respondents we see in our study, it's varying between 40 and 50%. So that's more than double people that don't have a car in their household, which is a very important indicator, because if you don't have a car, you are. It's also a bit less easy to use a car, and maybe people will use a shared car instead. But still, if you don't own a car, people will do less car trips. That's what we see also from research from car sharing. So I think this is also interesting to see the overlap between both. If we look at owning a bicycle, it's the people that in our study own less bikes than people in the average Flemish people. I think that's logical because they use shared bikes and shared kick scooters instead. Also, the ownership of seasonal tickets for both bus, tram, metro, and train are higher among our groups. Although for bus, tram, metro, it's quite the same as the Flemish average, which is interesting to see because we saw in one of the previous slides that the usage of bus, tram, metro is 3 or 4 times higher, but still the ownership of a seasonal ticket is quite the same. So it's interesting to notice. A bit hard to say why. And then we also had a look at the impact of the vehicle ownership that have people get rid of bikes, cars, other vehicles because they had the chance to use shared micromobility. So what we see, we asked the people, okay, in which way so we first asked, did you get rid of a car or a bike or a scooter or public transport season tickets since you joined one of the micromobility operators? And if they said, okay, yes, I did get rid of a car, then we had a follow-up question. Okay, and what was the importance of the fact that you had the availability to use shared bikes or shared cars? So this is what you see here. So these are only the people that really get rid of a vehicle, and then we ask, okay, how important are these shared modes for you? And I think what strikes me the most here is if you have a look at, for instance, getting rid of an own car, so the pink bars, the mode that is most important to get rid of a car is, of course, the usage of car sharing, which is logical. It's a one-in-one replacement. But what strikes me here is that also the usage of shared bikes is important. So it's not only the shared car that helps people to get rid of their car, it's the whole package. It's also the fact that people have access to shared bikes and shared kick scooters that helps them to avoid owning an own car and using shared modes instead. If we look at getting rid of an own bicycle, I don't know if that's a policy goal. Maybe in some cities that are too crowded with bikes, that can be a policy goal. I don't think it's an all region fact, but you see that some people do get rid of a bike, an own bike, because they can use shared bikes. There you see that the availability of shared bikes is the most important one, which is logical, I think. And for public transport, so some people didn't buy a new seasonal ticket for public transport. There you see that also the access to shared bikes is the most important reason for this. All right. This is it. This was my last slide with figures. It's a lot, I can imagine. I'm very curious if there are some questions. I don't have a look on the chat, so I'm curious to see if there are some questions. And I don't know if Bram already mentioned or did it in the chat, but you can find the report on our website. So all the numbers are there. Some of them, it might have been fast, but you can read it very slowly and report that as on our website. So thanks for your attention and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Johannes. I think you guided us very well through a lot of interesting data. Focus was on Belgium, but I think we can learn, or many European cities and regions can learn from it. There is a question in the chat from the city of Munich, which is about how the sample of the survey was constructed. Who was informed and invited? Was it communication via social media, associations, etc.? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't stress that in the methodology, but so with all the 8 operators that were active in Belgium that joined the survey, we asked them to spread the survey via email or newsletters. So it's not only via social media, but really it was a direct communication to all the users, all the people that used shared modes in the last, I think, 2 years. It was a bit different among operators, but it was a direct communication towards the users via email and newsletters, with also a reminder after 2 weeks and so on. So that was the way we did it.
Thank you. I see there is someone in the audience who is raising his hand, Sebastian. I will give you the mic. I hope it works, but just let me see. Is it working or not?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Super. Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this great report and the webinar here as well, the presentation. So as I was a little bit involved in the beginning of this project with coordinating a bit the support from both the Cycling Industry Europe bike sharing members as well as the Micromobility for Europe shared bike and e-scooter operators. So it's a bit fragmented, but I'm very, very pleased to see that this has unfolded and that we have now for the first time really comparable results across different cities, different operators, different modes. And I personally would love to see that scaling across different countries, across, to become really a benchmark for these kind of rider surveys for the future so that we can get comparable insights. In the past, or the status quo right now is obviously that often, we as operators, we are asking our users these or similar questions, often very similar, but sometimes in very small nuanced differences that makes it very difficult to compare and to aggregate. So I think here's really a potential to grow. And my question to also the wider audience here with people from representatives from cities and authorities is like, is that something you would appreciate as well, where you would also like us as an industry to work closer together in the future? Or do you prefer to have your own specific rider service as some of you have done in the past, where again, sometimes the there are different questions, and it makes actually the execution of such surveys at a local level a bit more complex, because typically these kind of surveys, they are centrally organized by the central teams in amongst operators. So question is this approach of a harmonized survey useful or not? Question to the audience. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in favor, but that was
Well, I think it's a bit hard to have a group discussion here, and that would take us a bit too much time, I think, as well. But I think from our side, we definitely support only just for the fact that we can compare the data a bit better. But I think this is a clear message from you, Sebastian, to the cities here that we have to align more on surveys and questionnaires we ask. And maybe this is something we can take within UITP or Polis, for example. Yes, indeed, you can drop the thoughts in the chat as well. In the meantime, I see there are some other questions, Johannes, for you from Damien. Do you see behavioral differences between cities, Brussels, Ghent, Antwerp? Do you see any differences there, or is it impossible to do?
It was hard to make distinctions. Like I said, so we have an overrepresentation of people that live in the Flanders region. So the number of respondents from the Brussels region was a bit too low to make conclusions. It was a pity, because it was really our aim to also have a good view on what is happening in Brussels. And I think if we would do this research again within, I don't know, a couple of years, that would really be the aim, to also have a good response, not only in Flanders, but also in Brussels and in the Wallonian part of Belgium. I think it might help if we maybe can get the survey a bit smaller, because it was quite extensive, although we already cut it out. Some parts we also wanted to ask, but still it was quite extensive. So I think if we can make it a bit smaller, and also maybe integrate questions via the app, because I think if people, the moment people end a ride and they can, I don't know, get 1 or 2 or 3 questions, and you can do that on a very large scale, that can also be a way to have some insights. It will not be the same like in an extensive questionnaire, but so this is something we want to work on, because now it was really not intentionally, but it was focused on Flanders, because most of the respondents were from this region. And yeah, make distinction between cities, that was not the intention we had from the beginning. So we did ask where did they use most oftenly a shared vehicle, but also there we had, yeah, most of the answers came from the Antwerp region, bigger city, and also the region around Antwerp. So yeah, it was not possible statistically to make some distinctions between the cities, but we hope to do that in the next round.
Okay, there is another question from Jeroen. Is there any indication that access to and use of shared bicycles and scooters lower car ownership, or is it the other way around? Thus, not having a car increases the use of shared bikes and scooters?
Very good question. Also, something we investigate, and if we look at car sharing, it's always the chicken or the egg. Is that something you say in English too? Yeah, do people, like you said, do people tend to get rid of a car because of car sharing, or vice versa? I think what we see here, and maybe I can get back to this slide. So I think this question helps us to make an estimation about that, because we ask people, did you dispose of a private vehicle? And if you did so, what was the importance of shared mobility? So these are people that, if I remember correctly, people that get rid of a vehicle after they joined shared micromobility. So in that way, we have the order in time already to see what's the importance of shared mobility. And then you see here, getting rid of a car, like I said, it's for most people, the most important mode that made it possible is the car sharing, of course, but also shared bikes help people, and shared kick scooters help people to live without an own car and still be very mobile, and that they can do the trips they want to do. So I think this is maybe part of the solution or part of the answer to your question, I think.
Okay. And do we have some more precise data on comparing e-bikes and mechanical bikes?
I suppose the question is about among the users of micromobility, I suppose. So,
especially regarding existing fleets in Belgium.
We didn't make that distinction. So among the operators, we had both. So we had operators that are exclusively using pedal bikes, operators that are exclusively using electric ones, and the mix. And it was not the purpose of the research to make a distinction between pedal bikes and e-bikes. So I think we didn't ask either if they use more e-bikes or pedal bikes. So that was not the purpose of the research, but both are included in the sample.
Okay, and there is a question from Emma. Are the systems in the report free floating or station based? I think that's an easy one to respond to, but are there any systems procured by cities in the study or just private operators?
Okay, yeah. So the first question, can you repeat it, Bram?
So was it free floating or station based in the study?
Okay, yeah. One of the very first slides, but I don't I don't want to go back to the very first slide, but you will see it in the report too. So we have operators that are operating back-to-many systems, both back-to-many systems with fixed stations and back-to-many systems without stations, only with drop zones. We had also a system that is back-to-one. This is the shared cargo bike system, which was a quite low response rate. And then for the kick scooters, they are only back-to-many with drop zones. So we have a mix of all the forms. And then about the procurement, so also there we have a mix. So some of the operators are working, I think, in a concession way. So like, for instance, in the Brussels region or in the city of Antwerp. But we have also for instance, among the bike sharing schemes, some of them at the moment of the questionnaire were already working in what we say in the transport regions in Flanders. So Flanders is divided in 15 transport regions, and every transport region got a budget from the regional government of Flanders to tender a regional bike sharing system as an add-on for the public transport. So it's for first and last mile combined with public transport. And so some of the respondents and some of the operators that are joining here were already active at that moment in one of the 15 transport regions with a system of first and last mile bikes. So the short answer is we have a combination.
Okay. Then there is a question from Louisiana. If in the demographic data, if we have any information about users that have a disability or mobility impairment.
No, there's the short answer. We didn't ask about these kind of indicators. No.
But do we have any thoughts or experience with understanding this cohort and the role of shared which role shared micromobility plays? Sorry.
Yeah, that's something different indeed. So we didn't integrate it in the survey, but I think a lot of European project, for instance, show the importance also of the linkage between shared mobility and shared micromobility and making mobility more inclusive. And I think there are really some opportunities there. What we, for example, are also working on projects in our region. So in the city of Ghent and Mechelen, for instance, we are looking at social terrace so that's more linked to people that with a low budget, with a low income. Can we also find solutions for these people to have access to shared micromobility and shared mobility? I know there are also some projects on a European scale that want to look for solutions for people with that are less mobile, that also can use shared cargo bikes, for instance, or rickshaws. But it was not the scope of the research. But I agree this is an important thing to have a look on in the future.
Yes, indeed. There is, for example, the Interreg project, Small, who is handling this topic. For now, there are no further questions in the chat. Maybe I have one more question for you, Johannes, since we have a lot of governments here in the audience. What would you say? I mean, looking back at this, I think it took almost 2 years to to come to the report. But what are the three main recommendations you think for public authorities here when it comes to micromobility, of course?
Yeah, the first one I think is I stressed it a lot during the presentation. I see a lot of overlap and combinations possible between shared micromobility and public transport. So I think there is a lot of opportunity there to work on integration. That can be a different form. That can be tariff integration, ticket integration, other forms. I don't know. I think there is really an opportunity, and we have some examples from abroad, but in at least in Flanders or in Belgium, it's not done before, or not in a general way. So I think it might be very interesting to see how this would work out, and I think it would help even more people to make the combination between both and see also a shift away from car trips. Because I think if I come to a second recommendation, it's interesting to see in the modal shift that people shift away from car trips, but also shift away from trips by foot, for instance, and that's not the thing we want to see. And I think as a local government, regional government, if you can work on that modal shift and find ways to get people away from cars, but not away from trips by foot, but yeah, if you can work on that on these policies to stress even more the modal shift away from cars, and that people can use public transport, but also micromobility within tariff integration and so on. I think that's the way you can improve the modal shift and the positive impacts of shared micromobility even more. And a third one, yeah, I think maybe if you look more concrete on shared kick scooters, there's a lot of debate. We have the ban in Paris, for instance, and in other cities, and there's still a lot of debate whether cities would or would not invest or be free or open for kick scooters. But what I think, if you have a look on all the data that came forth here, and also operational data that come forth from shared kick scooters, you really have to make a distinction between private and shared kick scooters. And as a city or as a region, you're more able to have an impact on what is happening with shared kick scooters because of regulation, or because of there are some rules for these kind of vehicles. You have an overview of all the trips, of all the data, and so on, which is not the case for private kick scooters. It's also shown that the shared ones are more safe than the private one, and so on. So I think it's important to make that distinction, and then these kind of data and our report, I think, can help in having that debate in your city and in your region.
Okay, thank you, Johannes. I don't see any further questions in the chat anymore, so I'm assuming it's clear for everyone. I shared the full report already in the chat as well. I think from my side, if my main conclusion is that it's all about the mix. If you create a lot of different alternatives for the private car in the city or in the region, it helps with reducing the number of car trips and especially also reducing the number of car ownership, which creates space. But we have one more question, I see. Sorry. The shift from foot to micromobility is not necessarily a bad thing. When combined with public transport, the intermodal travel chain might be faster and so public transport more attractive. It's not really a question, it's a statement. But since we don't have any more questions, I really want to thank you, Johannes, and all the people attending today for joining. We will do another webinar by the end of this year when we come up with a new report on the impacts of car sharing. You might be invited for that as well. And for now, I would say thank you very much and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.